If you've been doing hours of cardio every week, expecting it to help with your fat loss, and you're either not seeing the changes you want, you're always feeling exhausted, or you're watching your strength training suffer, this episode will change how you approach cardio. Many people treat cardio as punishment for how much they've eaten, or they chase meaningless calorie burn through cardio, or they avoid it completely thinking it destroys their muscle gains. And all three approaches honestly waste time and energy. I'm going to show you the adaptive cardio pyramid, a 3-layer framework that tells you exactly how much movement you need for fat loss, muscle growth, and longevity without wasting time. Welcome to Wits and Weights, the show that helps you build a strong, healthy physique using evidence, engineering, and efficiency. I'm your host, certified nutrition coach, Philip Pape, and we're going to talk about cardio today because you're either spending lots of time on cardio, an hour a day maybe, on a treadmill or some sort of machine. Maybe you're sweating through HIIT, interval classes, Peloton, F45, CrossFit style, boot camps. Maybe you're tracking all the calories you burn using your wearable. But after weeks or months, or maybe you've been doing this for years, it doesn't seem to be affecting the scale or, more importantly, your fat loss and body composition. Maybe it's causing your lifting performance to decline, and maybe you're always exhausted and it's stressing you out. Any one or all of these things could be happening when it comes to cardio, and you're not alone because this is what happens when we treat cardio as kind of this sledgehammer for losing weight, for metabolism, for fat loss, instead of the precision tool that it's meant to be. Now, cardio can definitely accelerate your results and the results we are looking for on the show, which is an improved physique and performance, function, strength, leanness. It could also extremely undermine those results and those goals. And so the difference between them comes down to having a strategy rather than just showing up and treating cardio as kind of an afterthought, right? If we're going to have a strategy for our lifting and our strength development, why wouldn't we do the same for all the other forms of movement we have in our lives? Now, before we get into this framework that I've put together for you, it is a 3-layer framework that I think will be very time efficient and very adaptive to your needs. I want to let you know about something happening tomorrow, Tuesday, September 16th. I am hosting a live workshop called the Adaptive Cardio Workshop, where I'm going to show you exactly how to build your own personalized cardio plan using the pyramid we're discussing today. We're going to set up your starting metrics. We're going to identify what you're capable of, what your schedule allows, and help you map out how to fit cardio into your life in an enjoyable way that gets you the results. And this is in theory. I'm a big fan of workshops being step-by-step actual work that you get done and come out of it with a plan that is tailored to your goals, your schedule, your recovery capacity, what protocols, what the timing is, how to layer it with your strength training to get the maximum result. You'll also, in that workshop, get a download called the Adaptive Cardio Guide, only exclusive to people who show up for the workshop, and our 8 strength training templates as well, so you can fit that in along with your lifting in an efficient way. Workshop attendees also get a month of access to Physique University, included in the price of $27, and a custom 6-month nutrition and training transformation plan that I put together for you. Again, all included in the $27 for everything. This is tomorrow, Tuesday, September 16th at 12 Eastern. It also includes the replay. So if you cannot attend live, you're still going to get all of that stuff, and including the replay. You can register at live.witsandweights.com. And if you're already in Physique University, you get this included. So again, another bonus to people who are in there is that these workshops are free. You can register at live.witsandweights.com for tomorrow's adaptive cardio workshop. If you're hearing this episode after it's done, the link will still work. You can still get the replay and all the bonuses I just talked about. All right, let's build an understanding of why most cardio approaches don't work so well, and then what actually works and how we can put this together. So let me start by destroying some myths. We love busting myths. These are things that are just wasting your time. They are wasting your energy. Okay, myth number 1, that cardio is the key to fat loss. It's just not. You know, if you go into the gym in January, New Year's resolutions, what do you see? You see people spending all their time on cardio machines. In fact, most big box gyms, that's what I see. I see tons and tons of cardio machines. A lot of people using those, very few people using the free weights or even the machines. And people are convinced they're going to lose weight, they're going to lose fat, they're going to get the result they want, improve their physique doing cardio. And the research just does not show this to be the case, let alone experience and anecdote from working with hundreds of clients. Studies are consistently showing that cardio-only interventions, where you just do cardio, underperform by 20 to 50% compared to predictions. And the big reason why is because your body compensates. Metabolic adaptation occurs, an endurance adaptation occurs, and you get hungrier. You actually move less throughout the day, so your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, actually compensates and comes down. So all of these things, your metabolism, your hunger, your compensation through movement, it doesn't create the calorie deficit you're looking for, whereas nutrition absolutely does this. Now, cardio can 100% support your fat loss, but it is not the driver of fat loss. And this is where the nuance is important. And treating it like the main thing is what's going to make you extremely frustrated and you're going to burn out. And this is often the crux of so many people who find this podcast and then they're like, oh, I see the missing piece is actually lifting weights. No wonder it's not working for me. And no wonder I move more and more and seem to eat less and less and I don't get the result. And that is why. Cardio is not the key to fat loss, but it can definitely support it. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Myth number 2 is that cardio kills gains. So this is kind of the other side of it where you have people who say, I don't have to do any cardio, and I've even used this messaging to a degree where I say, you can get the result you want, you can build muscle, lose fat, and not have to do any cardio. And that's kind of a little bit of a puff word in the sense that cardio can refer to multiple things. It can also refer to walking. So if you're going to include walking in there, then absolutely you want to do cardio. But I'm talking about more intense, metronomic, stressful cardio. People who avoid any cardio because they think it interferes with strength gains are missing out on lots of forms of cardio that can work. And that's where I want to separate the two. And this all comes from research on what's known as the interference effect, the idea that cardio blunts the muscle building response, the adaptation that you get from lifting weights, right? But the key word is excessive. The interference effect only shows up when you're doing high volumes, very, very high volumes of intense cardio that compete with your recovery resources. Now, a lot of you are doing what would be considered excessive. So I don't mean to downplay it either, but some people think an hour a week of running or something is going to just kill all your gains. And it's not. I'm not a huge fan of running. I'm just saying, as an example, it's not going to kill your gains. If you're an endurance athlete, if you're a runner, you could still train concurrently and have a hybrid approach to lifting and training that still works. We've talked to some people on the show. Minimal, intelligently programmed cardio is going to actually enhance your recovery. It's going to enhance your performance in several different ways related to health markers, related to your lifting recovery, related to your athleticism. We're going to talk about it. But again, it's not going to just kill gains, right? There was a meta-analysis in 2012 by Wilson and colleagues, and it found that low-dose cardio, for example, can improve blood flow, nutrient delivery, and recovery between lifting sessions. It is the dose that makes the poison, as with many things. Myth number 3 is that more cardio equals better health. This is an important one, and to understand why it's a myth. We see people doing lots of cardio, thinking that that is the thing that's going to optimize their health, their blood markers, their resting heart rate, etc., their VO2 max, whatever they're thinking they're trying to improve, cardiovascular health, quote unquote. But the research consistently shows that it's the volume of your movement, not the intensity, that predicts longevity. And so if you think about what that means, you can have lots of volume that's very low intensity. Whereas people are hammering home this message on social media that you need to do interval training, even sprinting. I love sprinting, and we're going to talk about that. But it's not necessary to have really, really great cardiovascular health, like far superior than the average and more than sufficient to have a great health span. Studies tracking hundreds of thousands of people show that around 8 to 10,000 steps per day is linked to the lowest all-cause mortality. I think you can go as low as, say, 7,500, but 8 to 10,000 is a good round number or range. And then adding high-intensity work on top of that provides only marginal benefits, and that you need to have that foundation of the steps. Now, steps can be metabolic equivalent. It doesn't have to be just walking. Again, one of the nuances we can talk about, but it's general movement, low intensity movement. So if cardio does not drive fat loss, if it doesn't interfere with muscle gains unless it's overdone, and if it doesn't require extreme intensity to get the health benefits, then what is the right approach? And that's where the adaptive cardio pyramid comes in. All right, so I want you to think of cardio as a hierarchy, just like a nutrition pyramid. Or if anybody's familiar with the muscle and strength pyramids by Eric Helms, same idea. It's the most important things at the bottom, and until you do those, you don't worry about the things higher up in the pyramid. You start with the foundation that supports your health and metabolism, and then you add layers only as needed for your specific goals. So let's start with the base layer, what I call minimum effective movement. And by the way, in the workshop tomorrow, we're going to give you a diagram. We're going to give you specifics for each of these. We're going to help you map it out. We're going to give you a week-by-week plan for the next 8 weeks, all of that. But I just want you to understand the concepts today. So the foundation, minimum effective movement, is walking and low-level movement. So that includes walking, of course, just normal walking. Also includes brisk walking, rucking, which is where you add some weight. It could be a backpack, a rucking sack, or even a weighted vest, which are all the rage right now, I understand. It could be incline treadmill work, walking on hills, basically anything that keeps you moving at a conversational pace. And we're not even going to talk about heart rate zones or anything today. That is, in my opinion, unnecessary when it comes to having a totally optimal minimum effective dose cardio plan for yourself, right? We want to keep it simple. So your target for the minimum effective movement is going to be measured in steps, because that's one of the easiest proxies to measure with a wearable, with your phone, with time. You know, there's lots of ways to do it. You don't have to have a pedometer, although most people have them today. 7 to 10,000 steps per day are equivalent is really the target. And this works because it raises your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your NEAT. NEAT is the energy that you burn from all the movement that isn't formal exercise. And I want you to be clear here that formal exercise represents less than 5% of your calorie burn. It's insignificant. Whereas NEAT can represent anywhere from 25 to 60%. I mean, it can represent a huge amount depending on how much you move that lever. I guess the British say lever. I say lever. So this also includes fidgeting, standing, walking to your car, taking the stairs, going for walks. NEAT has the biggest impact on your long-term energy expenditure and fat loss, right? In other words, you're able to increase your metabolism and eat more food or lose more fat, be in a bigger deficit because you're moving more in the low stress way, low level movement. And low level movement is incredibly stackable. You can walk while taking phone calls, listening to podcasts, running errands, being on, Zoom calls. It supports digestion when you do it after meals, improves your glucose control, right? Your blood sugar. It enhances your sleep quality when you do it in the evening. And the research is crystal clear. A 2019 study following over 16,000 people found that mortality risk drops significantly at 8,000 steps and plateaus around 10 to 12,000. So you don't need marathon runners. In fact, running is extremely stressful. I don't even know why I use that as an example. To get longevity benefits, you just need to be getting off your butt and walking, right? And there's lots of corollaries to this having to do with looking at your day, how sedentary you are, how much you walk today. Actually getting to 8,000 if you're currently at 3 could seem like a big request, a big, challenge. And so I am a big fan of that 0.1% a day improvement. If you're getting 3,000 steps a day now, get 3,500 steps a day next week. Inch your way up there, and eventually you'll get there successfully in a sustainable way. So that's the base layer, and I have a lot of other examples that we're going to talk about in the workshop tomorrow. The middle layer is what I call adaptive enjoyment. This is for sustainability and adding extra movement that you wouldn't add if it weren't for it being something you like, if that makes sense. So once you have that movement foundation, and look, if you're still getting 3,000 steps a day, you shouldn't even be thinking about this stuff other than, you do it already anyway. This is the cardio that you enjoy. This could be hiking, cycling, dancing, pickleball, swimming, martial arts, right? BJJ, whatever keeps you coming back being athletic, moving your body. It helps with other areas that your strength then complements. And when you're doing this, it's usually 1 or 2 sessions a week, maybe 20 to 40 minutes. We're not talking about a lot of time, right? Maybe you're in some sort of league, maybe it's bowling, whatever. Did I say pickleball? Yeah, that's popular today. So the key word here when I say adaptive enjoyment is the word adaptive. Your enjoyment and life circumstances are going to change, so your cardio should adapt with it. So maybe it's tennis in the summer, maybe it's indoor assault biking in the winter, or Peloton or something like that. Maybe it's hiking on the weekends and then yoga when you're really busy and you could just need to throw it in. And this layer is really important. It serves multiple purposes that are intentional. First, enjoyable activities have very high adherence rates. You're going to do it. So even if you've established your step count foundation and one week you just happen to get so busy, you just don't get a lot of steps in, but you're like, I got to go to that basketball game Friday. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. Think about it. You're going to do it. It's going to reduce your stress. It's fun. It's social in many cases. A 2018 study by Reljic and colleagues found that adherence to HIIT protocols drops significantly over time compared to moderate activities that people actually enjoy. So again, you don't want to punish yourself with cardio. I think the base layer we talked about, most people would agree that like low grade walking and things like that is pretty sustainable and doesn't feel like punishment. But once we start getting into the more intense versions of cardio, like even medium intensity cardio, some people feel like it's an obligation that they hate, that they don't want to do, that it's exercise. We don't want to get your head into that space. So again, I'm setting up the argument here that you never have to do high intensity training ever if you don't want to and still get fantastic results. And then the second thing is, besides having high adherence, is fun cardio provides variety. It provides psychological benefits beyond just supporting the health and metabolism piece. All the social activities that are out there, team sports, group fitness classes, I'm okay with those if they are reasonable in terms of time and intensity and they don't stress you out. They add those community elements that can improve mental health. That can improve your stress management. You know, some people just love to go into the environment of the gym to have other people around them. So that's the middle layer. And then, only then, once you've got the step count, once you've got some fun activities, now you can say, okay, let me add in some deliberate cardio sessions. Now you might be surprised and say, wow, Philip really puts this to the end. Yeah, I do, because going back to the argument that you do not even, quote unquote, need cardio other than walking to get great results, including fat loss, low resting heart rate, low blood pressure, good blood sugar control, all the things. You really don't. You really don't. But if you're into optimizing, if you're into performance, if you want to push the needle a little bit more, if you want to improve your VO2 max, or yes, even get a little extra boost with some calorie burn during a fat loss phase or not, then this is where the top of the pyramid is important. It's called precision cardio. And this is where performance matters, where sprint intervals, some structured high-intensity interval training. Again, I'm not a huge fan of HIIT, so it's got to be very, very intentionally recoverable, let's say, or more longer steady state sessions, which I'm okay with. Medium and low intensity steady state that's a little bit more intense than the walking. So for this, I would say no more than 2 sessions a week. 1 or 2 sessions a week. Start with 1, maybe add into, again, sustainability, only if your schedule and your recovery allow, right? Don't force it in because that defeats the purpose. So this layer is going to improve specific aspects of cardiovascular conditioning. So this is the principle of specificity. Just like we train to build muscle and lift weights, if you sprint, you can improve your VO2 max, your anaerobic power, your aerobic capacity, your work capacity. I will say a lot of that gets improved just by lifting and walking, probably 90% of what you need. But if you want to get that other 5 to 10%, that's where this comes in. Sprinting is particularly powerful for lifters because it is anabolic. It recruits your fast twitch fibers. It helps you preserve your muscle mass because it's very little work to a lot of rest and recovery. And it triggers favorable hormonal responses that's very complementary to lifting adaptations. And you feel like a superhero when you sprint. It's not running. This is the argument I'm going to make. Sprinting does not feel like running. I am not a big fan of running. I'm not going to say I hate it. Well, I try not to use the word hate, but I kind of almost do. I think most people do. But sprinting feels totally different from running, in my opinion, whether it's flat ground or on a machine. because it's just like all out power for a very brief moment of time. It is much more closer, in my opinion, to something like doing a deadlift 1RM. It's this all out effort just for a brief period of time. So the critical thing, I think, with the precision layer is that it's like the sprinkles on the top of the pyramid. It is that small of a triangle or a piece of the pyramid, right? It is not required for fat loss. It's not required to grow muscle. It is not even required for health. It's just not. It's not required for your metabolism. All that meaningful stuff happens in the first two layers, but this last one can add a little extra oomph to the equation. And so many people are flipping this pyramid upside down. They really are. They skip the walking. They might lift weights, but then they skip walking. They don't do anything enjoyable because they're like focused on getting all the regimented fitness lifestyle stuff in their schedule. They jump straight to suffering through HIIT classes, and then they wonder why they burn out or they don't get the results. So I think this framework gives you this big picture. Implementing it is where people get stuck, right? How much walking is enough for your situation? When do I do it? How do I do it sustainably? How do you time cardio around your lifting sessions? What if you hate traditional cardio, but you want the precision layer because you've done all the rest and you want to get your performance goals, right? And these are the questions we're going to answer tomorrow in the adaptive cardio workshop. I'm going to show you how to assess your current baseline, how to build your plan from the bottom up. You're going to get 8 training templates from Physique University that take all the guesswork out of programming your lifting, if that's what you are interested in. And you're going to get the downloadable adaptive cardio guide that has all the protocols and troubleshooting strategies. Workshop attendees get a 6-month nutrition plan from me and a full month of access to Physique University. All of that for $27. I mean, I'm not making this up. All of that is included. No strings attached, just $27. So it's tomorrow, Tuesday, September 16th, 12 Eastern. Register at live.witsandweights.com. Make sure you get a spot before we run out. And you will get the replay if you can't make it live, but you have to register to get the replay. Again, that's live.witsandweights.com for the adaptive cardio workshop tomorrow. All right, so I want to give you the scientific backing for why this research, or I should say why this pyramid structure works so well. And that will set us up to talk about all of the common mistakes. So that's what we're going to cover after this. So real quick on the science, and then we're going to get into the mistakes that people make and what you should do instead. And then some final, I'll say tips on building this up, even if you can't make the workshop tomorrow, okay? I don't want to leave you hanging. So going back to the base layer, we know that walking and low-level movement work through multiple mechanisms. They increase your daily energy expenditure, but do not trigger hunger, the same hunger that high intensity causes. I think there was a review in 2021 by Helms and colleagues found that moderate cardio has minimal impact on appetite hormones compared to intense training. Second, walking improves insulin sensitivity and glucose control, especially 15-minute walks after meals. And they tend to have better outcomes than a single longer walk that are not after meals, let's say. Although you should walk whenever you're able to walk. Third, there's the muscle protein synthesis angle. Recent research shows that prolonged sitting reduces your body's ability to build muscle. And we're going to talk about that at tomorrow's workshop in detail about how you can break that up and improve your muscle protein synthesis through movement. But the moral of the story is don't sit around for hours at a time. So that's the base layer. That's just some of the basic science. The middle layer, the enjoyment layer. The research here is actually pretty surprising and sobering to a lot of people, but we're going to start with a sobering fact. Most people quit their exercise programs within 6 months, period. But if it's enjoyable, the adherence rates are significantly longer, right? And this isn't just up here in the mind. This isn't just psychology. There are physiological benefits to doing activities you enjoy as well. They lower your stress, your cortisol levels more effectively than forcing the exercise. It improves your mood. You release endorphins. It creates positive associations with movement rather than punishment mindsets. And then at the precision layer, the science really depends on your goals. So if it's VO2 max, interval training can be very efficient, but we, again, are talking about a specific way to do that. Very few sessions, very short sprints, lots of recovery, and it doesn't take that long, and you can get your conditioning really quickly. When I was in CrossFit, I remember if I had taken off time for a while and then came back to it, the conditioning came back very, very quickly, just within a few weeks. For accelerating your fat loss, sprints can be helpful as well. And that's why I think it's not the solution to fat loss, but if you're already doing all the other things, which are, I'll say, the biggest return on investment, sprinting is a nice thing to add in. They create what's called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC, where you burn additional calories for hours after the session because it's just so intense, but in a short, recoverable way that you get this added benefit to it. They also improve insulin sensitivity and help you preserve muscle mass, right? There's no real risk there. So that's kind of the basic science. I don't want to get too nerdy on this. I know you guys love that, but I don't want the episode to be too long. So that leads us to trying to understand, okay, what mistake are people making that the science gives us the rationale for these, right? And the first big mistake is skipping that foundation. Like, hopefully you've been convinced that you need that in there. You know, I see people doing like the boot camp classes, but then they get 3,000 steps a day. So they're like building that pyramid upside down, and it's just going to create new problems. It's going to stress you out more, cause you to adapt and not do the thing you want, which at its very basic, it's not going to even burn the calories you want to burn. Mistake number 2 is confusing hard effort with effectiveness. Now, that might sound sacrilegious because when it comes to lifting weights, training hard is important. When it comes to cardio, there's more nuance because I know lots of clients who came to me doing spin classes, for example. Those are very popular, right? 90-minute spin classes. And they were like feeling wiped when they would go to their lifting sessions. They weren't getting the result. Their metabolisms were lower. And I said, let's just eliminate that for a while, see what happens. And all of a sudden they have a much less stress. The metabolism increased and they're able to hit more reps in the gym, more weight in the gym, and able to progress. And then they can layer in cardio in the right way. Mistake number 3 is not listening to your recovery signals. Very important. Your body's going to tell you when cardio is helping you and when it's hurting you. If your strength is plateauing, if your sleep feels disrupted, if you're always fatigued, you're probably doing too much or you're doing the wrong type. And so this pyramid concept, this adaptive cardio, should enhance your other goals and not compete with them. Again, we're not talking about endurance athletes. That might require some extremes that you have to make trade-offs for. We're talking about people who are prioritizing body composition, fat loss, muscle building. And then the last mistake is more mental than anything, and that is the all or nothing thinking that you have to choose between cardio and lifting, like I'm a lifter or I'm an endurance person, and that's not really the case. I think what I'm trying to demonstrate today is that you can get the benefits of both without the downsides of either extreme. So I'm going to give you just some tips just to close out the episode that are going to help you move the needle forward. I want you to pick one tip today from what I tell you and move it forward. Now, if you want to come up with your plan, join us at the workshop tomorrow, live.witsandweights.com. But you want to start by tracking your steps. Very simple. If you're not already doing that, it's like tracking your food. You might be shocked by how little you actually move. And then you're going to gradually increase by 500 to 1,000 steps a week. 500 to 1,000 daily steps each week until you get to the target you want. And you want to use movement stacking, or movement snacking and stacking, I should say. So stacking is walking while you do other things. Snacking is taking breaks, right? And then there's all the other ways to get more movement outside the scope of today's episode. And of course, you can add a little bit of challenge to your walks if you want with something like a weighted vest or rucksack. Then the enjoyment layer, this should be just genuinely fun. Like if you dread it, I want you to pick something else. Don't let your spouse or friend or whatever force you into a sport you don't look forward to, okay? The goal is the long-term sustainability. So for this, if you're not doing anything right now, enjoy doing the research and looking around your neighborhood and the town where you live, wherever, to see what's going on. Talk to friends. Maybe you already know of things at the local gym or whatever. And, schedule it in like a very important appointment. But at a time you feel like you can do it reasonably without stress, that you're going to be consistent, you're going to enjoy it. And it could be just free form like a bike ride or going for a hike, right? It doesn't have to be a scheduled activity. And then finally, we get to the top layer. The tip I have for you here, again, only once you've mastered the first 2 layers, is to check out my sprinting episode, which is episode 293, 7 benefits of sprinting to lose fat. And that episode will give you a good starting protocol to work from. And speaking of that, we did do an entire workshop on that sprinting protocol in Physique University. So if you want to join tomorrow's workshop, even if it's afterward to get the replay, you could also get access to all of those replays, including the one on sprinting. And the total time commitment for sprinting once or twice a week is about 5 minutes each session. That's it. So the adaptive cardio pyramid is a framework. I love frameworks. I love systems. It's a way to think about movement strategically instead of emotionally or randomly. You're not punishing yourself. You're not making up calories. You're not trying to out-train a bad diet. You're going to use the minimum effective dose of movement to support your physique goals, your health, and your performance. Again, most people are looking at this backwards. They start with the hardest, most time-consuming options, the most high intense. They think that the most intensity is going to burn the most calories in the shortest amount of time. Therefore, it's sustainable, and it's not. It is not. Walking, think about it. Is it easy to walk, or is it easier to constantly do HIIT sessions? You know the answer. Is it easier to go do something you enjoy, play with your kids or do a sport? Or is it easier to force yourself to go for an hour-long bike ride, right? You kind of understand the trade-offs here. And yet it's not just that there are more or less benefits to each. It's that you're going to do one and the other one you're not. You're going to stop doing it. And that alone is worth the price of admission here. And I want you to remember this, that low-level activity improves your metabolic health tremendously, but does not trigger the stress response. Enjoyable movement enhances your adherence and your psychological well-being, again, without triggering the stress response. And precision cardio gives you specific adaptations when you properly dose it once you've done the other two. So the beauty of this system is in the name. It's adaptable. If you have a busy week at work, you focus on the base layer. Of course, below that base layer, in my opinion, is your strength training. But that's outside the scope. We're saying on top of that is the cardio pyramid, right? So movement snacks, walking meetings, going for simple walks after a meal, even if it's 10 minutes long. You can't do 20, do 10. You can't do 10, do 5. You can't do 5, take a break every now and then and do 1 minute. Your cardio should serve your goals. That's what we're all about here. That's the efficiency. That's the engineering approach. So if you want to take this from concept to implementation, I want you to join me tomorrow for Tuesday's Adaptive Cardio Workshop, where we are going to work together and build your personalized plan using this exact framework. And yes, if you can't make it, you get the replay and you get the guide anyway, so you can walk through after the fact and put it together as well. You're going to learn how to assess your current movement baseline, set realistic targets for each of the layers. We're going to talk about troubleshooting common problems. And I'm going to share the protocols that I like to use, as well as a whole bunch of examples. I've got some bonuses for you, including a plan for a busy person who has a desk job. What does your day look like to make this all work? So that's live tomorrow, Tuesday, September 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's just $27 for all of that, including the replay, whether or not you can attend live. live.witsandweights.com. Looking forward to seeing you there. And thank you so much again for listening to Wits and Weights. Until next time, keep using your wits, lifting those weights, and remember that your cardio should serve your body composition goals, not dominate your life. I'll talk to you next time here on the Wits and Weights podcast.